Y'all, listen. If there is one thing I've learned, adversity does not build character. Adversity reveals character. I'm Barbie Bassett, and I invite you to join me and my friends, Therese, Apel, and Traci Lee, as we peel back those adversity layers to see what else is revealed. Y'all, listen here and welcome. We are here for a new podcast and a new discussion, but I've got my friends with me, Traci Lee, with your U.S. hometown country 96.3. I knew at some point I was going to get this right.
You're so close.
Wait, I was close.
Yeah.
I didn't get it right.
Still not quite there, but
It's okay,
almost.
but all the parts are there, so
Okay.
it's still going to taste
I just
good.
got to get them in
It's
order
good.
now.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's fine.
Traci.
Hey.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
And then we've got Therese Apel with Dark Horse Press. I always get that one right, Therese.
Yes.
I try to keep it pretty simple because I need to make sure I can get it right.
I totally get it.
Well, we're so excited to be here today, and this episode powered by our friends at Sons of Sobriety. They are a club that you need to be a part of. If you are struggling or if somebody in your life is struggling, this is a great opportunity for you to plug in. It's not your average club. Now, Sons of Sobriety was born to kill the stigma, proving that living clean can be fun as HE double hockey sticks. They want you to know you can have a good time. They ride for the thrill and the cause. If you're sober, if you're fighting to be, if you're ready to ride with purpose, this is your crew. Red, Black, Clean, Sons of Sobriety, MC Forum 2025. Call or text our boy Daniel at 601-672-6591, or just reach out to him on this message. You can put something in the comments and he will reach out to you and join the movement.
Yes. And speaking of, we do love our podcast producer, Daniel Anderson with Audio Alchemy Productions. He is the one that puts this on for us. And so if you're interested in having your own podcast, give him a ring. Daniel is our man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have been talking about friendships. Do the people that you hang out with, do they draw you closer to Christ or not? And I'm just going to go ahead and start first and say, I've had a few over the years that probably did not draw me closer to the Lord.
Yeah.
But look at what I have in my life now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. How do you go about finding those friends who are truly bringing you closer to the kingdom?
I think sometimes you have to ask for them. Like there are times where you just pray and ask God to send you friends, especially older as women. We don't have friends when we get older. And I don't think people talk about that enough, that we're expected to do all the things and be all the things. And we don't have a village around us that supports us. And sometimes we get desperate and we cling on to relationships that are not good for us. I call some people colander people because you pour into them, they don't retain anything, and then you're both empty. You know, so it's important to pick the people that are around you because you become like the people that are near you. So if you want to grow, be with people that are better than you. You know, watch how they live their life. That's what I'm doing. I mean, I sit in this room and I'm not even, y'all don't even say anything. Daniel, turn their mics off. But it's like being around Therese and Barbie, there's a different level there. They're news people, they're camera people. They're used to being, you know, front and center and looking like they have it all together. And I'm over here like, I don't even know. Like, I just gave up my foundation for BB cream because I can't stand it anymore. You know, like that's just the way. That's the way. I'm a radio person. I live behind the mic. I don't get in front of it. So y'all make me up what I'm doing. You know, so it's important to have people around you that make you better.
Well, what's that old saying that our parents probably told y'all? Parents certainly told me, birds of a feather flock together. And when you're growing up, when you're a teenager, you just do the typical, I'm rolling my eyes for those listening to the audio version of this. You roll your eyes and think they have no clue what they're talking about.
Right.
But the older I've gotten, the more I realize that your friends can get you in trouble or your friends can bless you.
Right. Well, and I've seen something that talks about how if you want to succeed, you need to surround yourself with people who talk about success, you know, who talk about the aspects of things. And I believe that in your spiritual life, it's the same. And I think that we are very lucky to have found each other because, I think Traci and I just connected because of the media thing. And one day I was like, yeah, we should all go to lunch. And we did. Then we realized, like, hey, we're probably going to be friends here. And then we did the thing that I always say is like dating for me, except for it's girlfriends. And it's like, hey, will you be my friend maybe? And then, we had you and we brought you into the fold. And to me, it is so important to seek that in other people. I have friends that maybe I don't keep as close, that maybe we aren't doing all this all the time. But to me, it's more, so you can have, I feel like you have good influences, you have neutral people, and then you have the bad influences. And I have had all three. And I have found that all the times I have to make an excuse for somebody, if you have a friend that you're constantly being like, yeah, but she just, she's got trauma, or yeah, she just doesn't know how to act around people. Well, that sometimes is an indicator that maybe, and I don't always know how to act around people, so that may not have been the best. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Totally.
that thing that you're defending in them is going to be the thing that may bite you on the butt at the end.
But you had a good point, Tracy. It's like the older we get, the smaller our friend circle becomes because there are some people that I want to go through things with, and there are other people that I don't want them to know what is going on with me whatsoever. It's
Right.
not that I'm being ugly. It's not that I'm being unkind. But I think you understand that when I ask for prayer from my friends, there are only those specific friends that I want them to truly pray for me. Because how many times have we said, "Oh, I'll pray for you, Therese," and then you get busy through your life and you totally forget.
That's right.
And it's truly you got great intentions, but you just got busy with life. What do you talk about with those friends that you're around? Are you building other people up? Are you tearing other people down? That's what makes me reflect on the type of friends that I'm
Yes.
with.
Yes, I am. I'm doing both. Yeah. If I'm being completely
All
honest.
of that.
You just do that. And right or wrong, I think that it's important if you do have a friend that you are having a venting session with, and you're just like, if I hear one more time, and let me tell you that at some point she's like, okay, I hear you, but. Like there's always got to be a sane mind in the room. And I have a friend, Michelle does that for me. She will let me go. And then she's like, okay, Tracy,
Yes.
that's not what she meant, and I think that as we get older, it is so important to have those people in our lives that are real and that aren't afraid to call us out when we're doing something wrong.
Right. Well, and I think too, so I have gotten to where I don't really always have a tolerance for those negative friends. You've got those friends that are constantly like, they're mad about something, they're tearing somebody down, they're complaining, whatever. And it used to be like, I think it's just a difference in maturity, to be fair. Or, and I think we talked about before that like losing both parents has made a big difference in the way I relate to other people too. But to a certain extent in my life, I would take a lot off people, like we've talked about my friend that abandoned me after 12 years and didn't speak to me ever again and whatever. And I looking back, I can see all the warning signs, but she was my friend, right? So I think about now and it's kind of like, all right, if I like you, but I can't always deal with the energy you're throwing at me or whatever like that, then you're here. And then like you guys are here. And then there are people that just, when I see them, I'm kind. And then you just keep on going. And the thing is like God probably, I know he calls us to minister to those people on that outside circle I talk about. But but how do you do that when you're protecting your own energy as well? So that's something I struggle with sometimes.
Daily. I think that the answer to that, or at least it has been for me, is daily getting in the Word.
Yeah.
Daily. And I used to think those were such Sunday school answers, when you teach, school or you do something or teach Sunday school or life group and people respond with, what is the best thing to do in this situation? Pray. Read your Bible. Like, I feel like those were safe Sunday school answers. I want to get to the root of the problem, but that is getting to the root of the problem. When you pray and when you really dig into the Word of God, that is where you are not going to be shaken about what you feel, what you believe, who you are in Christ. And it helps you navigate those personalities, those friends, those tears, because I don't trust people hardly ever.
Yes.
I just don't. And I don't mean not to. I want to be open. I want to put my heart, I want to have those relationships that are meaningful. And I guess it's just looking back over the relationships that I have had and that I have invested in, none of them have been healthy, you know, and I've just kind of piece by piece, relationship by relationship, year by year, withdrawn part of myself from anybody being able to have a part of it until I realized nobody knows anything about me and I'm not letting anybody in, which is not healthy. It's not a good thing to do. We're built for relationship. I mean, we have a God who created the universe and can do whatever he wants, desires relationship with us. It's important to him, so it should be important to us. And I've had to make the conscious effort to be like, okay, I'm going to be all in on this. And I'm giving you as much as I can give you right now. I will give you more. It's just this process. And I know I've even done that with y'all. You know, I don't mean to be standoffish. I don't mean to be like, you can't have this part of me. I'm not going to be honest about this, or I'm not trying to be dishonest. But there's just so much pain and hurt and time that I feel like I've wasted on things. I just don't have time for it anymore. It's not, I can do this, blah, blah, blah. You know, but it's so important to have those people around you because the Bible's specific. You know, a cord of 3 strands can't be easily broken. If someone falls, you can't pick him up. People be with, I mean, the Bible's full of that. You want to have people around you that will pick you up and hold you and help you along the way. And I've got to get past that hurt and disappointment in my life to be able to do that, because that, I honestly, I feel like that's a form of worship because it's a part of myself that I can give over and trust that God's going to navigate it this time and I can take my hands off of it.
I'm so glad you brought that up because we're going to go ahead and be transparent here about you, Traci.
Yeah.
There have been times when Therese and I have said, did Traci seem just a little bit guarded today? Has
Yeah, like,
anybody
is she
heard from
okay?
Traci? Is
Yeah.
she okay? Should we check in with Traci? And I think that's a normal thing.
Yeah.
It is okay to have these moments where you do feel guarded or something's happened in your life most recently or even in years past, and you're not good at peopling for that day. And that's what we call it. When we get together, we're like, I'm not peopling very well today.
Right.
So it's a big deal for me to get out and go to lunch with y'all and meet with y'all today because I'm just not doing people well today. So it is so good for you to bring this up because it's perfectly normal. And I've had those moments where when we've gotten together for our regular lunches that I'm just not doing well. And I'm glad to be there with y'all, and I'm happy that you're having a great week, but I'm not.
Well, and let me say this too, because I'm familiar with what you're talking about, Traci. I mean, I've spent most of my life like being a little bit weird and a little different than the people around me. And, you know, just in a situation where there's a group of people, I'm usually on the outskirts of it, you know. So the thing that I feel like when we talk about this, I feel intruded upon when somebody says, "Hey, is Therese okay? Should we check on her?" I'm like, "I'm fine."
Yeah.
God, what? You know, but it's like when we do that for you, I know it's just because like I love Traci. I want her to be okay. And so the funny thing is when you have that response, you know, that like, look, I will let you be my friend, but I'm not going to let you spend any energy on me. You better not care about me because then I'm going to have to put you all the way out here, you know? And I was talking about something the other day about, oh gosh, what was it? Anyway, there was a situation where I was talking to a particular, I think it was a doctor or something, and they were asking me questions, routine questions. And there was a part of me that's like, you're too interested. Like, you know, like the natural response of like, you're getting in my space.
Yep.
And I do that with friendships and I do it in relationships. But it is something that I have decided in this chapter of my life to try and overcome. And so I think I've told y'all about my friend Amanda. And when she and I became friends, it was like we were sitting there and, you know, I did my approach like, well, it seems like we get along. You know, would you want to go to lunch one day and just kind of see if we gel as friends? And she was like, yeah, but let's get something straight. Like, if I'm going to give to this relationship, so are you. And we're going to give 50-50. Like, I'm not going to overinvest. I'm not going to let you overinvest. Like, we're bringing both of us are bringing stuff to the table. And I was like, okay, I think every relationship ought to start off with this conversation, every friendship, you know, whatever. Because she was just like, I'm not going to be the one pouring the whole time. You're going to have to pour some too. You know, that's very healthy. And in our friendship, that is the case. And there are times that she can't give and there are times that I can't. And I feel like we have that dynamic here without ever saying it. But to me, that is something that keeps me accountable as well. You know, in a friendship, I'm like, all right, first of all, am I pouring into them everything they need? Second of all, am I letting them
Yes.
pour into me? Because I'm the worst to not let that
Yes.
happen, you know?
And the older I've gotten, the more, the less tolerant I am of drama.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have friendships that include drama.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether they're mad at me or whether they're mad at someone else, or every time we get together, that's all that is talked about
Right.
is drama, whether it's their drama or somebody else's drama. And I've become more cognizant of that the older I've become. And maybe that is a part of aging.
I feel like it is a part of the maturing. I mean, you know, you would think at our age that we could say we're mature, but like I said, when, I mean, there are times, right?
Silly Therese.
So, yeah, when Dad died, and I kind of went through that phase where it's like, all right, so you're gonna act like an ASS. Guess what? Cut. You're done. And frankly, I guess for me, the drama thing. Like last night, somebody texted me and said, "Hey, are you still awake?" And I was like, I love this person, but if they're calling to complain or if they're calling to talk about somebody, I can't do it. So I just wrote back and I said, if we're calling to complain or talk about somebody, no. And this person says, I swear I'm not. And then, of course, it was about their relationship problems. And that's fine. I'm there for it. That's my friend. But there was a part of me that was like, no, the whole point was I don't have this energy right now. Don't make me do it.
Yes.
But then again, I had to remind myself that what they're going through, they kept saying they needed a good sounding board. They needed somebody, you know, rational to talk to them about the truth of what was going on. So I can give that. I think it's one of those things like you got to pick your battles. You got to pick your conversations. You've got to decide, is this worth this right now? And there are times that someone may come to you and be like, can I vent? And it's like, I don't have it. I'm not your girl right now. And you got to decide in that moment, like, am I? Like, what would God do? Is this what I do right now? You know? And that, again, that's a question I don't have an answer for, but I think it's something we all deal with.
Do you also think that the older you get, the more important it is for you to pick friends who align with your purpose? Let's talk about that.
Yes and no. I think it's important for growth to have people, I don't know if I would call them friends, but to have people in your life who feel and believe completely opposite of you. I feel like that has given me a better understanding of how to better communicate with people.
Yes.
Now, do I want to hitch up to their wagon and do life with them, believe what they do? No, I don't. But I want to learn about them. I want to learn why they feel a certain way. I want to learn why they're so passionate about this. Like I can think of 2 or 3 people that I am friends with that would shock. I think people, if they're like, what? Why are you, what? You're so opposite. But there's something beautiful about that person. They're passionate. I'm passionate. We're just passionate about different things. But we respect each other enough to be passionate about different things and still be civil to each other.
Yeah.
And learning how to love other people. It's almost, I mean, if you want to think about spiritual warfare, Barbie, I know you've done extensive study on that, and you too, Therese. It's almost like knowing what your enemy is laying down as bait. Like, I need to know what you're feeling, what you're doing. Why do you believe that way? Why do you not believe this? What is it that is so offensive to you? Why is that offensive to you? Why does that hurt you? And just trying to understand people instead of immediately say, oh, well, you don't watch Fox News? Delete.
right.
You know, like I want to know why you feel that way. I want to know because at the heart, and I think this is the heart that God will give you, is to love the unlovable.
Yes.
And you find something in them that is human instead of offensive and opposite. And I think that that's important to have people that don't feel like you, don't believe like you in your life. But it is also important to have the people that do and to feed off of those people. But I also want to learn, you know, I don't ever want to get somewhere where this is what I believe and you just have blinders on.
Right.
You know, and there's no, because I think that stunts your growth. And as long as you are grounded in the word and as long as you have daily relationship with the Father, then you're safe to do that. If you are a baby to the faith, if you're not sure about how you hear God's voice, what you do, then I would caution you to stay close to the rails. But there comes a point in time where you get to swim in the deep end. And that's where you find the beauty and the depth and the love of who God is. And when he says he came to die for everyone, you understand, because you see glimpses of why the Father loves them, in them, if you can get out of your own head and out of your own way.
Well, and I think one of the biggest problems in the Christian church right now is that there is a prevailing thought that is, if you're not one of us, you're one of them. And that, I mean, that's just the best way to put it, right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about, I'd say 99% of Christians, if you say, which was your favorite disciple? They're going to say Peter. You say, why? It's like, because he just did what he thought. I mean, he was impetuous and he cut that guy's ear off and, he said what he meant. They're going to say all that stuff, right? I mean, and we've all felt it. And the thing is, Peter, I'm about to hit some of y'all in your face. So Peter was sent to be the apostle to the Gentiles.
Right.
The ones that are them. The ones that are not one of us. And so if you're going to claim that Peter's your guy, that you're the most like Peter, you better be reaching out to people that don't look like you, don't talk like you, don't think like you. They're not your political party. They're not your same denomination. When you think about who Jesus sent us here for, that's why he said, I will build my church on you. Because he came for the Jews. There was a whole lot of drama there, and he said, I'm opening it up to the world.
Yeah, but you also have to think in Peter in Acts, like Paul had to get onto him because he always wanted to be that guy in the Jewish church. He always wanted to be that guy, and he was hanging out with those guys, and he started being a little condescending, a little like, well, I don't know why you're doing that, and Paul's like, okay.
But isn't it funny that came from Paul?
It is. It is. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you've got Peter and Paul who was the guy for the Jews.
Yeah.
And then you've got Peter, who always wanted to be Paul. And then Paul having to call him back and being like, dude, you are around the wrong influences and you're doing that. Remember the mission. This is not what you were called for. Stop that.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to see those relationships too that happen between the disciples and the apostles, that it was just different. And they weren't afraid to call each other out because it wasn't about them. It was about the mission. And when you find people that you're on mission with, they keep you on mission because it's about the mission. It's not personal. It's about the mission. But there's a way to do it with love.
Stop right there. You need to back up. Let's flip it and reverse it. Say that again.
I don't know if I can.
Sure you can.
It's about the mission. It's not personal. It's about the mission. Just stay on the mission.
Well, and I think, too, there needs to be a modicum of moderation in that, though, because I think we live in a world, like I said, everybody wants to be Peter because he said what he said what he meant. Well, the problem is we have, and also in the church, a real propensity to, I see you in sin and I condemn that. Love the sinner, hate the sin. Well, that doesn't save anybody. That does not save the first person. I hate, and we've talked about it, I hate that phrase more than anything because it is still a harsh judgment. Because that's basically like saying no offense or any of those other pre-qualifiers that we use. The fact is, we're, it's not personal. It's about the mission. But also the mission is love above all else.
Right.
Yeah. So Janice is saying, we're reading your comments, pray for discernment. Karen and Gary said, that will preach. Yes, it did.
It sure did. Traci is on it. I love it when you do that.
Certainly did.
I don't mean to. It just comes out.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that was good.
So I'm looking at Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
Yep.
Above all else is a pretty big statement there.
Yeah.
Above everything else, guard your heart. So the condition of our heart is very important to the Lord. And because he knows if the condition of our heart is rotting or cynical or whatever, then everything else that we do is going to be tainted. And I wrote down that I can't align myself with someone who isn't going to draw me closer to the Lord, even if that person is someone, like you mentioned, Traci, who sees things differently than you. I want to become more like him, so it's important that my friendships mirror Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, he needs to be your best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, he really does. And again, I'm single. I know that there's this special relationship between husband and wife where it's a partnership. You know, you're together, you're telling each other, at least that's what I read. You're telling each other that you're doing these things, but I don't have that. And I can truly say over the last year and a half, God is my best friend.
Yes.
There is nothing I don't tell him. Like
Right.
there is literally, I was telling a girl in our office the other day, Jan, when I'm driving down the road and I am just lit up about something, I will turn the radio down and I'm like, and another thing.
Yes.
Do you know?
Yes.
Like, I mean, I just like I would pick up the phone and call and just rant to somebody, I let him know what is going on. He is my safe place. He is my best friend. And if you don't have that, I highly suggest you press in. And you talking about the overflow of the heart, Matthew 12:34. Every time I see a clock that says 12:34, it says from the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yes.
So if you want to know what's in somebody's heart, listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Listen to what they're talking about. It says it again in Luke. I mean, that Jesus was very clear about that. If you want to know the condition of someone's heart, listen to what they say. What are they talking about? What comes out of them? You know, it's just, it is so true. And I think about that now and I'm like, well, the overflow of my heart right now is Chinese dramas. So I don't know what that says, but you know, it makes you stop and check. Boy, I've talked about that a lot. What's going on in here? But if you are lacking friendship, I would start with the Savior because boy, he's a good friend.
And, you know, I think it's important, too, to think about it like this because years ago, there was a guy that I dated in 2012. I thought he was the one. I mean, it was like we finished each other's sentences, you know, all of it. And he was the one that ended up getting married without telling me. And so,
Yes.
long story short, like he claimed that he had been special forces. He claimed all these things about his time in the military. So I went and studied him. I wanted to learn everything about him. I wanted to know about his trauma. I wanted to know what made him tick. I wanted to know about his mom. I mean, all the things. I studied him. And then after everything went wrong, and I was like, how could I have missed this? How could I have not known? How did he have this whole other thing going on behind my back? And I had no idea. And then I remember talking to somebody about it, and they said, I'm not trying to be in your business, but have you ever spent that much time on God? And I was like, ooh, okay. But that's different. You know, you read your Bible, you pray. I do that. I pray to God about him. And it's like, no. But you learned you learned military terms you never knew existed for this guy. What have you learned about God because you love him that much? And so that is something that, yes, I've been in a million stupid relationships again since then. But I think now I've finally come to where those words have meaning to me. You know, and like I talked about last week when I said, all I want is just to sit at God's feet and learn and absorb him and know all the things about him. That's how I know, like, okay, maybe I'm finally coming to a place where I'm loving him in a way that if it grows the right direction is the way he wants me to love him. Because I've spent all these years trying desperately to learn enough about some guy that he would love me back. Well, God already loved me first, you know.
Yeah, he did.
Well, and like the scripture says, seek him first.
Right.
His righteousness.
And all these things will be
And
added.
all the other things are going to be provided. And so that's a good point that you make. So what I'm hearing us say is really just look at the fruit of the friendships that you have. If there's fruit there, and if that fruit is ripe, you know, fruit is created to eat and to share and to provide.
And to make wine.
Thank you, Traci, for that.
You're welcome.
We're not
I was
Baptists
not
here.
expecting that at that moment. So that is so funny, though. That's right.
And you know what though? I mean, like I go to a Baptist church. I'm not dissing on Baptists, but I bet a bunch of Baptists were like, "Hey, whoa." However, Jesus's first miracle was to keep the party going. And as a Presbyterian, that's my statement to go along with what Traci
I'm sorry,
said.
I didn't mean to derail you. I just thought of that.
No, please go ahead.
But you're so right.
Okay. So yeah, hilarious moment. Thank you for that. I needed that. But that is true. I mean, that is what our fruit and friendship should be about. Or are we giving rotten fruit to each other?
Yeah.
Fruit that can't be used, fruit that has spoiled.
Yeah. I think it's important, like you said, to watch the people around you and what they're producing, but to also take inventory of yourself. and what kind of friend are you? And quite honestly, I'm lacking in that area, and that has been something not only in friendships but just in relationships in general recently. And I think because my parents have been dealing with so many health issues, it's easier for me to shut everything off than let anybody in anywhere, because I'm so scared if I open it, I won't be able to close it.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that's a dangerous place to be too, because then you isolate yourself. And if you had know anything about how predators hunt, they always go after the weakest or the isolated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is not a safe place to be. It feels safe and it feels like I won't get hurt, but it could be setting me up for ambush and injury. So I have to be very careful. And I think if you find yourself in that situation, it's a very delicate balance. And that's why it's so important to hide under the wing of the one who can make sure that he holds you all together. I told somebody this week, and this is what I mean, like when the Holy Spirit speaks through you and you're like, boy, that was good. You know, she was just on my heart, and I sent her a message, and I felt like she smiled in situations where her heart was breaking and nobody knows what's going on with her. And I told her, I said, it's a safe place to fall apart with the Lord, because who better to fall apart with than a carpenter, a potter, and a creator who can put you right back together. That's exactly what I did. And I sent that text, and I'm like, well, that was good. That was the Lord who said that. But what comfort to know that if the best place to be broken is in the repair shop, and that's the best place.
Well, and I think, and it may have been in here that we talked about it, but I've been in a conversation recently where we were talking, actually, it wasn't in here, so I'm adding something. Talking about how a certain friend of mine was saying that he just can't really be friends with people, not can't be friends, but it's hard for him to connect to people who haven't been badly broken. You know, if you haven't been through something that really just reduced you. And he said it's not there's anything wrong with somebody who hasn't been through those things, but it's like our hearts can find a place that connects so much better, because once you've been there and you've been on the floor in front of God, just, you know, help me, save me, I don't know what to do next. You know, and I feel like as Christians, when you come to that place of brokenness, I think that's where we can open ourselves to God, and then He can fill those voids in our lives. What you're talking about, Traci, I felt that way a lot when Dad was in his last months. You know,
I
when
know
he was,
we talked about it briefly. We didn't really go into it because
Yeah.
I don't think either one of us could.
No, I think we
Yeah.
were both sitting there looking at each other, seeing ourselves in what each other was going
Yeah.
through, and it was kind of just like, this is the worst. I see you, and I'm gonna walk out now
Yeah.
because neither of us can
Yeah.
do this right now.
Yeah.
Well, Vicky just wrote, I've been in the repair shop before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like I stay in the repair shop.
Right.
Right.
Wonk, wonk. I mean,
Look, I'm
is
like
what
the
it is.
Ford of Christians, found on the road dead, staying in the car shop. Yeah, that's gonna be me.
well, someone recently said, "Oh, I would love to just eavesdrop or ear hustle
Yeah.
on y'all's luncheon. You know, when you and Traci and Therese get together, I can't imagine how much fun that y'all have when you get together." And I said, "Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot of laughing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of cackling. You will hear us talk about work."
Yeah.
You'll hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and you'll hear who we're mad at for that week. But you'll also hear the name of the Lord
Yeah.
Right.
invoked so many times.
Yeah.
And that's really what I want my friendships to be about.
Yeah.
If I'm meeting a business associate, if I'm, meeting y'all, if I'm meeting someone, an next door neighbor, I want, if someone were to eavesdrop, because here's the truth. We know that the Lord is eavesdropping.
Yeah.
We know that the angels are eavesdropping. And we also know that our adversary is eavesdropping. And I want them all to go away saying, man, that was so good. We're so glad that we listened in on what they were talking about today at lunch.
Yeah.
Well, and you left out the part where there's usually some tears too.
That as well.
So something that I don't know if y'all have seen the new season of The Chosen. So it came out in the movie theaters first, before it came out streaming. And I went to all 3 of the showings so that I could see all the episodes. And there's a part, and I don't feel like it's a spoiler. I feel like I can tell. I mean, not like we don't know what happens anyway, but so Jesus goes to a thing and he ends up at a wedding. He's like walking through and there's a wedding. And so he stops and talks to the couple that's getting married, and they realize who he is, and thank you for coming. And he puts a blessing on him before he leaves. And it was like, just, I know it's just actors, but watching Jesus bless this marriage and bless these people, I'm getting emotional talking about it, because I thought, oh my gosh, what if we could just do that as we walk through life? You know, what if and I've always, my mom used to, when we were walking down or driving down the street, somebody would be walking and she would throw a blessing on them.
Yes.
And so now I'm driving, I'll see somebody pulled over, broken down, cop on the side of the road, somebody walking, and Lord bless you and keep you, Lord make his face to shine upon you. I do that one. And the thing is, seeing Jesus do that, I thought, what if we actively, not just in our groups, but as we talk about the people we talk about, what if we stopped right there and it's like, well, you know, and I'm using a name. This is nobody real. Like, Karen's really making me mad. Like, Karen won't quit being a jerk, you know, whatever. And then we're like, hold up. May the Lord bless and keep Karen.
Yes.
May the Lord make his face to shine upon Karen.
Let Barbie do that.
Right.
She's going to be better at that than
Yeah.
I am.
Because Tracy, you're going to go Rankin County on them, right?
I'm Rankin County to a fault. I'll be like, I'm sorry. What did you just say? Yes.
You're Peter.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, I think this has been a great discussion, and it's one of these conversations that I have with my kids quite often, and that making sure that you're picking those people who are, you know, edifying the Lord in their life, but also encouraging you in your life.
Yeah. Encouraging, not mandating. I think that's
Yeah.
important. Encouraging, because if you've got somebody that's in your life that's like, well, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
In the way they're saying, well, I can't be around you until you get that sin taken care of. I mean, I understand there's a loving way to do that, but if you've got people that are belittling you in your life, I don't know if that's necessarily good.
Well, and recently, so I have one friend who is a baby Christian. She's probably about a year or two into it. And then I have another friend who's just said, look, God's disappointed me. Like, I think he's probably there. I'm not really that interested, you know. And so, and this friend that is kind of at odds with God right now, she and I have been friends for a while. And I mean, at the beginning of our friendship, she just said, I'm not into that God thing. Like, don't really think he cares. And I said, that's cool. And so we've lived this whole friendship. And then recently, she and I and the baby Christian were all together. And it was like in a moment of just us just having fun and talking, she started asking questions. And so we're just talking back. We're just answering. And then at some point she said, it just feels good to be somewhere that I can ask questions about God and nobody's judging me.
Yeah.
And I thought, can you imagine, like, actually having these questions in your heart? It makes me cry. Actually wanting to know about God. And like one of her questions was, if I wrecked this car right now and I died, you're going to say I'm going to hell. And I was like, we don't know what happens between the moment. 1,000 years is as a day and a day is, we don't know. And you're searching. So it's not mine to tell you what's about to happen. And I understand there are churches that would probably blow me out the back door for that. But, you know, the fact is, it meant everything. And it moves me to tears that she felt like that was a safe space for her. And I want our group, and I want myself, I want to be that to people who have been hurt by the church, have been hurt by God, have been hurt by judgy Christians who have said, yeah, well, no offense, love the sinner, hate the sin.
Yeah.
So
I think about Lauren Daigle, and I know we probably need to wrap this up, but Lauren Daigle was asked she's a Christian music singer, in case you're not familiar. She was asked in an interview several years ago how she thought God felt about homosexuality.
I remember
and
that.
people that were in, and she did not give a church answer because she said, I don't know. She said, I have people in my life that are of that lifestyle, and I know that God has more grace than we give him credit for. So I'm not going to say one way or the other. She was crucified for that.
Yeah,
I
for
remember
saying
it.
that. But she never changed who she was. And Lauren's like a hippie. I mean, she's just,
Yeah.
you know, this is just who she is. But I'll never forget that. And her being so honest and open. And I understand what you're wanting me to say, what you're baiting me to say, but here's the reality of what I'm saying, you know, and I will never forget that. And I love her more for that.
I
For not
agree.
just shutting the door on somebody.
well, and I think it's important to remember when you say something that rings true like that, that comes absolutely from God's heart, that, and you get blasted for it. That's what Jesus got blasted for all the time. He would say, "Love these people," and the church would be like, "What?" And that's what
Who
happens
was it?
sometimes.
Nicodemus? Was it Nicodemus that he talked to who was trying so hard to figure out the whole born again thing?
Yes.
And he was just like, he was a Pharisee or a Sadducee. I'm sorry, I don't know the story perfect, but he was really trying to find out.
Yeah.
Wait,
What the answer was.
what do you mean being born again? Like, go back to the womb and be born. He was trying so hard to wrap his mind around it, and I have so much respect for that
Yeah.
because there are so many people that are very, very much into the religion and the part of it that is the rules, that they don't stop and ask, wait a minute, what do you think about this? Like, what do you say about this? And knowing that God is totally fine with those questions, totally fine. I mean, Jesus had a conversation with Nicodemus about it, and I'll never forget just feeling like that is so refreshing that he's just being that honest.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, what is this? Tell me about this. And we can do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we want to encourage you with today is to look at the fruit of your friendships and what that fruit is, whether it's a good fruit or whether it is a rotten fruit. We're going to continue this conversation on our Patreon channel. So if you are not a member of our Patreon channel, we'll make sure that we put the link there so that way you can do that, because the conversation after the podcast is typically even better than the podcast.
That's right.
Always, always. But in the meantime, we will see y'all again on Y'all Listen Here.
It's a brand new day.